The Guardians have made a charge back into the playoff race, but after a weird weekend loss to the Royals, it has them in a weird spot heading into the trade deadline.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a Monday morning episode of Locked On Guardians, where we cover your Cleveland Guardians every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're the only podcast covering the Guardians in the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. And we'll talk about all that today, of course. We hope it's your favorite half hour of the day because we love this half hour of our day as well. I'm Justin Lada. I have been hosting this podcast with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis since October of 2022. He's been here much longer than me, but I've also been covering the Guardians minor league system as long as Jeff, since 2007, providing scouting reports, prospect analysis, and much, much more at lots of websites that you can read, some places and some that don't exist anymore.
I'm always sad by those ones that are non-existent. Love to find my old reports. I started this podcast back in 2019. One of the first people Locked On brought on when they wanted to expand to baseball. Before that, I was a national writer. It's gotten 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. I was on ESPN radio during that time and Drive Time Everywhere. Shout out to whatever that radio station was in Texas. It's still the worst interview I've ever had.
They've gotten much better, thankfully.
Oh, well, it's just great. I'm there to talk about the draft, and they asked me about the Rangers situations. I'm like, I got nothing.
Great Hank Blaylock. Was he still there at the time?
No, he was not. No, I talked to Adrian Beltre because at least I knew enough to talk about. Like, I think he's a future Hall of Famer. That was about all I could talk about. But yeah, I always remember that is the worst. Or you can hear me as semi-regular guest on WTAM. I was on twice on Friday there. A big shout out to all of our everydayers. We appreciate you joining and talking to us. I guess I should give a shout out to Dennis Maniloff, who does have me on and is an everydayer of the show.
Yeah.
And then I also want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And everyone, I love being on. I'm very thankful for those opportunities to be on the radio to talk. Dennis is giving me a fantastic opportunity. Please don't start stuff. I'm just, it's a dream. I never thought I'd be on the radio stations I listened to as a kid growing up as an expert.
Shout out to my buddies Taylor and John F. and other listening while they're redoing a bathroom. So I appreciate that. On today's show, we're going to talk about the Guardians. They have signed 21 of the 22 draft picks. We'll talk about that situation, who they didn't pick, or who they didn't sign. Also, just the implications of their draft. Talking about rumors. The Guardians, there are trade rumors that are not quite going on, but they're kind of going on. We'll get into all that. And, of course, we'll talk about this Royals series and what a weird weekend it was and what direction it's going to push the Guardians this week. Before we get there, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. This was one of the most weird series of the year, just the way things played out. The rain out, the doubleheader, and I got to be honest, I didn't think it was going to happen, but I can't remember. I'm sure it's happened before, but I did not for a second believe we'd see Emmanuel Clase twice in one game with the doubleheader. Hunter Gaddis, I was like, okay, he only threw 6 pitches in game 1, so I guess I understand that. The Clase thing was weird after a blown save.
I think it was
that was his fault, but sort of wasn't.
That's why I think it happened. Yeah. I got to be honest, because the umpiring was terrible. Let's just be very honest. Like, it was awful.
He still hung him. He hung
a
pitch. A bad pitch to Jonathan India, who's not good.
But,
by the way.
But here's the thing: like, just his frustration, everything else, you could see it was boiling out. He was because there was 4 or 5 strikes that were called balls, and one of the walks was 100% a strikeout. And I know you're saying, like, there's people out there, oh, he's a professional, don't let it get to him. Like, it was egregious. Like, it was that umpire only had 90% of his calls right. It was one of the lower scores I saw all year. It was really bad. It was really frustrating. The other side of it was sign of more things to come. They get the bases loaded and get so little out of it, which would be a theme for this weekend, unfortunately. But that was one of those things. I think in some respects, it's like, just send him back out, and so he's not fixated on what happened, because that's got to be so frustrating to not just give up the home run, but also just when you feel like you're not in control and you're getting hosed. Like, I think in some respect, maybe it was the mental side of it. It was like, yeah, send him back out.
The weird thing I was trying to think about, I was like, okay, there's rumors involving Clase. We know they're talking to teams possibly about him. We'll get to that in the second segment. But I was like, that's a very odd strategy if you are considering trading him. But also, like, it also kind of felt like, not I don't want to say desperation, but it kind of felt like desperation because, like, I understand you want to win the game that's in front of you and worry about tomorrow, because they're at the point of the season that they need to win ball games, and if you have a lead, you got to close it out. So I totally get that. I'm sure Clase was telling him, "Hey, I'm not down in game 2." Like, I guarantee Clase has done this all year long, where he's told Steven Vogt when Vogt wants to tell him, "Hey, you're down today," and Emmanuel Clase is like, "No, the I'm not." He likes to pitch, but it almost felt like desperation for the team. Like, they're trying to convince the front office to buy. They're trying to say, like, don't trade our guys. Let's go for this. Let's do something. And they needed to win that game, and it was like, we can't afford to go to Matt Festa here in game 2, or whoever else in the 9th inning, or use somebody else. Like, we've got to win this game, and it felt like desperation a little bit in terms of just trying to win and keep this group together.
I don't know if it's a desperation. I just think,
they're trying to win a game, which I think it's not desperation, but it's kind of like you're playing the tactic of, like, we're trying to win, and they should be, but like,
yes.
it's you're I don't know. They never put a player's health or the team above player's health, but like, obviously Clase again is saying he's available. It's just, I think they were trying to win a game because they know they're in a spot where things could go either way.
Yeah, and I know we got so much to talk about today. I see a lot of what you're saying. I think it does speak to where they are as a team, and it does make me think that, while they're considering things out there, that we'll debate that more in segment 2. The other thing I got to talk about, though, that I found a little disconcerting this weekend was the fact that Joey Cantillo was struggling to hit 90 today. Not only was his command not there, but his velocity was way down, like to the point where, I don't know. I don't know if he's maybe a little dinged up, if he's got a tired arm, what's going on. But it was
hot.
It was hot, but he was struggling last game with velocity. It's 2 games in a row where his velocity has been down. He was awesome last time, but the command wasn't there, and the velocity was down. It's a little bit of a concern. Obviously today's game, the things that stood out in the loss today, and I know we're fixating on the losses, not the wins. Some people won't be as happy, but it's the guys, Martinez, Rodriguez, and why am I blanking on the other? Fry, the guys out there to kill lefties, went 0 for 8 with 6 strikeouts. They every single game, the first 2 games, they had more base runners in Kansas City. This game, they had more hits. They just didn't have any walks today, which was part of the problem. But to get the bases loaded and get nothing out of it again, you and I love platoons. They're platooning themselves into a hole because they just don't have the pieces to get it done.
I mean, at least Will Wilson's not playing anymore. Gabriel Arias is back, and he looked good on Sunday.
Yep,
he had a home run and a double. Basically, the only punch they had on offense. I mean, I like the Arias-Rocchio combo for now, for what they have right now. That worked out well. I mean, Tanner pitched fine. He got 2 home runs. Other than that, he was good. He didn't walk anybody. The home run problem has been an issue for him all year. Gavin Williams was good in game 1, like, fantastic. Cantillo was a bit of a struggle. Can we also talk about how weird it was, that start by Chris Bubich? Like, he threw 4 straight walks, and I kept saying, I was like, you don't throw like 16 balls out of 20 pitches without being hurt. Like, that's not even just the yips. That's just like, you had to be hurt, and now he is hurt. So I was like, but what a weird start. We had a weird start to that game. Luckily that benefited them and they didn't chase, but it was a weird start to that game. This whole series was just very strange. And the question now, Jeff, is where does this weird series leave the Guardians in terms of the trade deadline? We're under 100 hours to go. We'll see what happens. We'll get into what we think is going to happen during the deadline this week on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. You ever wish that managing your money was a whole lot easier? I think everybody can say that these days. Monarch Money can make it easier. So if you're trying to grow your savings or planning a big purchase, I just threw a very expensive retirement party for my mom on Sunday. And I need a new laptop. I just bought some new shoes. Like, I spent a lot of money this weekend. I got to get back on track because I've got a wedding to fly out for next year. I've got to make some big purchases myself. Monarch Money is putting all of us in the driver's seat because they are your own personal CFO. They give you full visibility control over all your finances. And and it's way more than just any budgeting app. It gives you the ability to track all of your accounts in one place with investments and spending. So you're not just managing money, you're building your wealth. You're trying to make sure you stay on goals and build your money instead of just letting it go, whether it's yourself, personal account savings, or with your significant other. We know those conversations can be awkward. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the good people at Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hard-working manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your old supply chain, say it with me, easier. Managing logistics, easier. Responding to price changes, easier. For small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global vision, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hard-working minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com.
All right, Jeff, the Guardians lost 2 or 3 over the weekend with the Royals. They're a game under 500. They did close the gap a lot this month with the Tigers struggling. So the Guardians were 15 and a half
Closed door
out.
meeting for them today.
Yeah, Saturday, I think it was. Saturday.
Yeah.
Not today. They won on Sunday, but yeah, closed door meeting for the Tigers on Saturday. But they were 15 and a half out just before the All-Star break, and now they're 8 out. They were 7 out, obviously, as of Saturday night. And they were 2 out of the wild card, 2.5 out of the wild card. They're 3.5 out now. I gotta say, I still don't know where this team is going. I think it's a mystery that where this team is going to go the next couple of days. I still kind of stand in the camp of they'll try to soft sell and they'll try to maybe add some pieces because, again, I want to make it clear. I think a lot of teams in the Guardians position are having the same conversations. You are trying to, as best you can, set yourself up for deals to either add or subtract or both leading up to the deadline, unless you're like, the Tigers or some clear-cut team. I did find it interesting that
or the Royals.
I don't understand. We could talk about that. I don't understand the Royals either because they just, traded for Randall Grichuk and they just extended Seth Lugo, which
I got no problems with
shocked by. I don't either.
Yeah,
it's just a very odd position. Like they instead of trading Lugo, they were able to keep him. I guess maybe if they couldn't extend Lugo, they maybe would have traded him, and then they added Grichuk. So they just felt like they might as well go for it. Which, yeah, you're right. I thought it was interesting that Mike Chernoff said that this next 13 game stretch, which is coming after the All-Star break, was a period of significant importance for the team and significance. So it does feel like they are. I don't know if it's like a thing they're saying for the clubhouse, but it feels like they're sending the message that they're going to decide their entire fate of the trade deadline based on the stretch after the deadline, which was good against the Athletics, not great against the Royals.
Good against Oakland.
And good, what's I said? Athletics, yeah.
Or
Athletics.
Baltimore.
Good against Baltimore, good against the Athletics, yeah. And then not great against Kansas City. And then you got a couple games with the Rockies before the deadline, which you can definitely base your entire season on whether or not you beat the Rockies. So I still find it very weird that like they have to have internal projections and they have to have an idea of what's going to happen the rest of the year based on the schedule, what they think is going to happen to this team. So basing what happens, what direction you take on 13 games after the All-Star break against pretty weak teams is a very odd position to take, but obviously not something we haven't seen before. And then there's obviously, people are talking about like, well, they should trade Kwan, they should trade Clase. If I had to pick one, I think it's more likely Clase than Kwan. And there is some background stuff going on with Clase. Like we've heard some stuff about teams checking in and the Guardians actually I shouldn't say pursuing trades, but they are at least doing their background work. I wouldn't say it's anything aggressive. They're not sitting here and like saying, well, let's talk trade. I think it's
we didn't know that
they're exchanging names.
We knew there's exchange of names, but again, we don't know if it's about Clase or anyone, right? We just know they're going for certain names.
Well, the teams that we're hearing and the names that we're hearing would suggest Clase, I think.
Or, those are the same teams that have been rumored to need an outfielder.
So the Blue Jays need an outfielder?
Yes, with some of their health
The
issues.
Phillies do. The Phillies
Yeah.
do too. You're right. There is that.
And it could be even
my only-
something like a lesser pitcher. Like right now, Tejon Walker's terrible in Philly. Like I see, this is where like, you know, you and I were debating in our text where I'm like, I don't think it means necessarily Class A. I think it could mean any number of deals, because also the guys you've heard are kind of B or C pieces.
Yeah, the only guy that was an A was Kendry
And
Rojas.
And I don't even think he's an A. Like, I think depending on certain plays, have him an A. But he's a guy who's thrown 84 innings max in a season, has struggled with health.
There is injury issues there for sure. He's an exciting arm, but yeah, there's injury issues for sure. I'm just saying, like, I think that it's more. I just think the teams are more likely because the Phillies for sure want to. I know they want to add a bat. But I think they're more focused on the bullpen, and I think the Blue Jays are focused on the bullpen too because both teams have closers that are struggling. They basically flip closers this offseason between Romano and Jeff Hoffman. They both stink this year, so they both need bullpen help very desperately. And I think both teams are desperate because right now Aaron Judge is out for the Yankees with an elbow issue that maybe or maybe not will lead to Tommy John, and obviously the Phillies have a lot of guys expiring contracts and all that kind of stuff. So I think both teams are desperate, and that was my whole what's the right word, prognosis or basis of thinking there could be a Class A trade, is that not because the Guardians want to trade him, but because there's a team desperate enough to offer what they would require to do it. But I think you're right. The pieces that we're hearing, like, I don't think are good enough for a Class A trade. So we're saying Kwan has less value than Class A, is what you're saying.
Yes. Because of the years of control
and the injury history.
Yeah, and because like I love what Kwan does. He's above he's one of the best defenders in the outfield on the planet, but he's an above average bat. I know he's on a power surge right now, but because of some of the lack of power and some of the other things, his ceiling is limited. Right? Like
some teams will still value him if they can put him at the top of their lineup for the next 2 seasons and then see what happens.
And then I think, like I said, I think the other piece too is just what we're hearing. It's like, I think our own biases tend to enter where you and I are both like we're on a Logan Allen. I don't know if they're shopping him or not, but like if there's another piece, or maybe there's a situation where they decide that like, hey, we can flip Gaddis. Like maybe this is the high point of his value and he's going to start hitting arbitration and getting more expensive. They might be talking to teams about Gaddis, and that might make more sense with some of the names we've heard as well, where it's a lesser name.
Maybe, or a lot of the stuff could be getting out, and it could be a way to drive up the Dodgers price tag because the Dodgers are so focused on not trading Dalton Rushing. And if I'm Cleveland and I'm talking to the Dodgers about Kwan or Clase, I am hanging up the phone until they agree to include Rushing. Like I don't think there's anybody in that system that they should be weird putting over.
The Dodgers are resistant to do that because typically they have not been resistant to flip anyone, and when they realize someone's blocked, they moved on. Michael Busch has been fantastic for the Cubs. And they had no problems moving on from him for just prospects.
Why do you think that's being said, though? My guess is that's being said is because they are trying to make sure, like, they are trying to drive the value down. That's my point.
They're trying to increase it. And we know none of it works. That's the funny thing. Like, it's silly season, right? Like, oh, well, we don't want to trade him. It's like, no, we don't want to move him, but I guess we can't. And it's all that maneuvering in the fringes that like really doesn't matter in the end because we all know the way it works. Just some quick real data before we head into the break. I just want to throw this out there. In the last 2 times they've traded someone with control left has been a pitcher, and it was a C pitcher with Clevenger and Savale. So that might be more likely. I'm kidding. That's not a. But the interesting fact with both those guys is injury issues. And I think the last time they traded a hitter, and correct me below in the comments, okay? So I want you people out there to help correct me. Was it Johnny Peralta in 2010 to the Tigers because he had a team option for 2011? Is that the last time they traded a under contract hitter who had more than a year of control left?
Yeah, you can't say it's Jimenez or Straw because those were contract.
Yeah, it was all about that was cutting.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of a player they traded that was a hitter before that, and I'm like, I don't remember a hitter they traded that had multiple years of control left before that. Unless you're talking about Victor Martinez, like that. If you don't want to count the option for Peralta, it was Victor Martinez, right?
Yeah,
so it's been a while. That's why I think it's a pitcher. That's why I think it would be Clase, or maybe it's a Gaddis, maybe it's Logan Allen. The question I have though is one of those players going to be Shane Bieber, and also the Guardians have an open rotation spot on Wednesday, possibly Who is that going to be? We're going to talk about that next, as well as how the Guardians did signing their draft class in 2025. Coming up next.
First, just look at this hat, right? Look at it. It's just, here's what I love with this hat. It's so clean. Game Day Hue makes clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's about letting the colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. Right now, it's because I got a bad hair day, but I even like look here. I just like I did all my lawn mowing this week. Just the ventilation is nice. Getting that on a hot day, so it's, if you got some of those hats that sometimes it makes your head feel hotter, that's one of the things I like about Game Day Hue, on top of just a nice, clean design. I don't have it on right now, but I just wanted to show off because people want to talk about. Here is, you can see nice up and close, all of it. That's the nice golf glove. Isn't that really cool? I also I do like their one design. I think that's pretty cool on it as well. And it's not just hats. Check out their split shade gloves. Game Day Hue is just a fantastic company. Really cool, very, like I said, it's just simplistic and awesome design. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. That code even stacks on bundles or deals, which rarely happens. So now's the time to load up. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. You're muted.
I thought I unmuted myself too. I even looked at that. Make sure you're tuning into Locked On Guardians every single day, because we do this every single day. And make sure you're auto downloading on all of your audio apps. Make sure you are hitting the bell on YouTube for reaction videos for every episode for the MLB Squad Show. And for any other breaking news that happens, we'll have a video reaction too, so you never miss any of those if you hit the bell on YouTube. But hey, if you want to be an insider, great time to do that as well. Check out joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians to do that, because we've been talking trade rumors with a lot of our insiders, as well as any other news we're getting, which, two things we talked about their insiders this week was, okay, Parker Messick, some of these trades, the Clase rumors, and then some of these trades, or some of these news, like Parker Messick was supposed to start on Saturday for Columbus, and he was scratched. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And obviously it's the time of year where that stuff kind of comes up. And was thinking about, like, what could the reason be? And I was like, well, maybe he's going to piggyback Beaver on Sunday. Maybe they realized the weather Saturday in Columbus was going to be bad and they didn't want to burn a start. But Cleveland also needs a starter Wednesday, and because Tanner and Gavin both went Saturday, neither of them can go on Wednesday now. Gavin was supposed to go Wednesday because he was supposed to start Friday. So Cleveland's got an open spot in the rotation for Wednesday. And I think it's probably going to be Parker Messick. That's my guess right now. I think the reason that and maybe it won't be, maybe they just want to make sure he's an option. Like, they still have Nikhazy on the 40-man, or on the 40-man. Who else is down there on the 40-man they can bring up to start a game? Is that it?
Heron, Matt Crook, and Zach Kent.
They're not starters. I mean, technically Daniel Espino's on the 40. No, I'm kidding. Those guys are all relievers.
Throwing well in Arizona.
Yes, the last report we heard on Daniel Espino is that he was throwing well in Arizona. That's all we can share. But you could do Nikhazy. You could do. It's either Nikhazy or it's got to be Messick, right? Like, there's nobody else unless you go with the bullpen game, which
I'm betting on Messick.
Unlikely.
Like, he's done.
That's what I would
right.
say too.
Like, they love to reward their guys. He's done everything right. I know some
he's
people.
He's got to be on the 40.
He's got to be on the 40 at the end of the year. That's the one thing. Like, Justin and I were talking off air about, like, there's 6 guys they have to add this offseason. It's kind of a mess, not counting like another 5 guys who are on the 60-man disabled list they have to add. So if there's any reason for Kefas to not debut this year, it's because he doesn't have to be added.
Right, and they've already got a mess there. That's a lot of talk for a future episode.
Yes.
Shane Bieber was unable to make his rehab start on Sunday because of the rain out. There's no minor league games Monday, so that pushes him back another day. He's supposed to start for Akron on Tuesday. I really wonder how that factors into the trade deadline. Like, that's the only thing. Like, I know we keep going back and forth about whether or not he's actually available. But it is interesting that it gives him a little bit less time to make that start. I mean, I guess it's only 2 days, but it does make things a little bit cloudier. And again, I don't know which direction Cleveland's going. Any final thoughts on trade rumors and trade stuff overall, Jeff, or do you want to get into
always
draft pick signing?
I mean, my whole thing is always that I think it's silly season right now. It's like we're going to hear so much, and it's going to be driven by I'm not going to call it any sites or sites I like, just putting out absolute drivel right now. So, until it happens, and when it happens, it's going to be a lot of guys you don't know. So make sure you come here and we'll have you covered.
I will say, I think at best, it's 60-40 that the Guardians don't trade Clase. Like I'm saying 60% don't, 40% will. It could even be 70-30.
I think it's,
but I will say
I think it's 90-10.
That's fair. It's not zero. I would say a couple weeks ago I'd have been like, nah, there's no way. Even before the 10-game losing streak, I was still saying that, or even during the 10-game losing streak. I think there's more background work being done than I assumed. And all that could be due diligence. It could all be due diligence. So I still think it's unlikely, but it's not the chance isn't zero. Let's put it that way. Same with Kwan. I think it's the same with Kwan. All right, let's talk about the draft picks. Jeff, I think it was an interesting year for Cleveland. Not only did they change their approach to hitters, at least early in the draft, they also spent early in the draft more often than they normally do. Normally, this team likes to save early on and buy players down and use that money down the board. This year, high Ks, and this year it was high money. And after that, things kind of went back to normal. But the first day, this team really kind of broke the mold. And it seems like maybe that is the direction this is going, at least a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say exactly how they view it, because then they quickly went back to just old approach. So for as much as they had the new approach with with 3 of their early picks, with Walton and Hines in between, but the Schubert, and even lesser degree Curley kind of fits some there, but Schubert and LaViolette are the guys who are very different. And then they went right back to the old approach. Jace LaViolette, highest bonus ever for the 27th overall pick. He broke at $4 million, which I predicted on the show. Pat myself on the back there. He breaks Rick Porcello in 2007. The Tigers gave him $3.58 million. That was the previous high. So he got a lot. Like Devin Taylor, who I really liked, only got $2.5 million. Like they paid Jace a lot of money. They had to pay him a lot of money. When they decided to go with him, they had to scramble. They had to change their plans to a degree. Even someone like Schubert, like why'd they grab him? He was under slot. Like they were trying to do under slot signings with both comp picks, with Schubert, a few of those other picks to save money. And then they didn't spend anything on day 3 because they were all cashed out. And yeah, it's just interesting thing. And I'll say this, I also said this off air. While I have my issues, mainly being the fact that like guys with that K rate, I can't find an example of success, like 0 examples. I would still much rather have a gamble on someone like LaViolette and Schubert than I would on those days where it was the Christian Kairos and the Yordis Valdez's, where it was, hey, we're going to go for all defense. And they might not have any offense at all, but we think we can get like a 70 grade defender. And if they're a 40 grade guy offensively up the middle, that's still a net, positive, going for the low floor. I'd rather have this approach. Now, does my shadow draft have LaViolette? No. Does my shadow draft have Schubert? No. But I can understand, and I'm appreciative of them finally realizing that they can't teach power, that they have to invest in some guys with some legitimate pop.
Yeah. Let me ask you this about LaViolette. Do you think that the reason he got there was the price tag? Do you think, I'm not saying maybe they bought him down, because it's at that point in the draft, you just don't know, because they were technically the last pick of the first round. But do you think his price tag might have pushed him down the board?
What I think could have happened is what we kind of saw, which he is very much a Baltimore type of guy. And I wonder if Baltimore's like, hey, we'll give you $4 million, because instead, when he was off the board, Baltimore gave Slater DeBrun exactly $4 million. So I wonder if when Cleveland saw him on the board and decided to make a deal, they called him and he said, I'm getting $4 million. If you want to draft me, I need $4 million. And they decided to jump. They decided to do it. I wouldn't be shocked if that was the play. If Baltimore was trying to get him, they got Ike Irish with the previous pick by paying him a ton. They got Slater DeBrun at a big bonus too. And then I also think there's a lot of teams who just weren't interested. Like I said, I had one scout send me a laughing emoji, because that K percentage, there are teams that just, no, like that's not recoverable. There's no, if they're doing that in the equivalent of high A baseball now, where on Friday it's high A baseball, the rest of the week it's low A or worse.
Right.
Then
and you're still
it's not going to get better.
Yeah. The one pick Cleveland didn't sign was 20th round pick Von Necker, who's going to Oklahoma, which we kind of knew was going to happen anyway. But but and obviously with the money they spent early on and had to sort of reconfigure things to make things work out. And once again, let's point out too, Cleveland spent to the max. You can spend up to 5% over
Exactly.
your allotted budget, and they spent exactly 5%. So anything more, they would have lost next year's first round pick. They spent more than their bonus pool was allowed. They spent 5% over, and there's tax on that, right?
Yeah, they got essentially 300. Well, here's not essentially. Here it is: $382,428.75. So on top of pool is that, and then the bonus money they could spend was $509,905. And then on day 3, they had 10 picks. They signed 9. They knew Necker wasn't going to sign.
None of those guys are over 150K, right?
No, but that
day
is
3.
like, yes, but that's still money they had to spend, right? Like that's still some teams are spending $5,000-$10,000 on the picks 10 through the 20th round. Cleveland spent $100,000 on 2 of them and $150,000 on the rest. So that's another like $1.2 million. There are teams who will not spend, like the Miami Marlins do not go over slot, and they sometimes cheap out on day 3. Like there are teams who will not pay on day 3. Cleveland costs, spent an additional $2 million on the draft that they could have avoided.
Yeah. So they got 21 of the 22 picks in, and they, like I said, that was a strategy change at the top of the board in terms of player profile, in terms of money. So we'll see if this trend continues. We'll talk a lot about that, obviously, during the offseason. At some point, we're also going to revisit our big board from a year ago, because there's all this regret and knee-jerk reaction to Nick Kurtz, which, again, everybody who's listening to this podcast knows that outside of Nick Kurtz's family, I don't think anybody likes him more than I do. And I think that you couldn't take him 1-1, and people are overreacting to the Bazzana thing. But that'll be a future podcast. We'll do that. Tomorrow, it'll be a solo show for me. I'll be here. I'll be actually at the Guardians game Monday night. So if you're around, you want to say hey or whatever, they can meet up with you. But I'll be back Monday or Tuesday with you. We'll talk Guardians Rockies. Jeff and I both agree they have to sweep the series. And the trade countdown is on. We'll get into some guys I like at the deadline if Cleveland's going to do a marginal upgrade on buys. There are some targets, even though one's off the board, Ahmed Rosario. So tune in tomorrow for that.
Yep. Thank you for joining us. Remember, rate and review, download daily, do your part. It helps. A quick shout out to Everydayer. Oh, I lost his name. Sorry, bud. I'll get you next time. Thank you all, and go Guardians. Go.